In my opinion, the best experience that any player can have at any tabletop role-playing game is to play a character that they have developed in the game through gameplay, and they have them developed. You know, they're not in really development stage. They've been doing that for a while. And now when things come to the character, that player instinctively knows what the character would say. You know, what if they would say yes or no to something, right? Or if they would laugh at something. You know, when you get to that stage, it's like having a friend who you've gotten to know. It's not somebody you want to lose in battle, or just have some petty character death, be put on their head. It's going to matter to you. And these are the characters that you're going to remember. You might play a lot of games and you play a lot of characters, but I guarantee you the majority of characters that you're going to remember, that you're going to have stories about, are characters that you have developed in gameplay. When I meet players that seem to not really care too much about doing dialogue, interaction in a tabletop role-playing game with their character, they rather just go do the dungeon, do a fight, do whatever, be into the action, but they really don't care for, talking in character and developing a character that way. I would tell them I don't think there's a difference in taste between us. I think you're avoiding an experience that if you had that experience, you wouldn't want to go back. You'd want to repeat that. And you wouldn't have the opinion that you have of that right now. But I think interaction and dialogue is intimidating to you. You feel uncomfortable doing it. You're not much of an actor. Well, you don't need to be an actor. You don't need to do a unique voice for a character. That was never really a thing. Like, if you could do it, good, bring it to the table. But it doesn't make what you're doing more effective than what the next player is doing. The next player only has to speak, in their own voice. But they have to say the words they think their character would say. And if they think their character is angry, they don't want to talk as if they're happy. They don't want to share like a happy tone. So you watch what you're doing there, but you just talk as yourself. And the great thing is, the imagination takes over. Maybe the first night a player who's doing unique voices comes in and does a unique voice, it will be a little entertaining. But you'll notice players don't care after like a session or two of that voice. Like, it becomes no different than you just talking in your regular voice. That's all. That's how they take it in after a couple sessions. Think about this. When you read a book and you're reading about a character speaking, you don't need to hear the voice, do you? Right? You can imagine what that character sounds like if they have a rougher tone or a rougher voice. And guess what? When you're listening to another player speak as a character, you'll imagine, just like you would reading the book. You'll take in that character whatever way you imagine it to be. If a smaller, like a person that's at the table is playing a big warrior, and that is reminded to you that they are playing a big warrior, they're doing that, they're making sure that is acknowledged. Well, then you're not going to take what they're saying in like it's, a squeaky voice from a small person. You'll imagine it to be a rougher voice. Like, you'll take the character in well, especially if the player is speaking like they think the character would actually speak. My point is, you really don't need to do a unique voice to be a great player at these games. And when you're getting into interaction, you only have to speak as yourself, and it really comes down to common sense. So there's no real reason to try to avoid this area, or to think you're going to be shown up by some player who does unique voices. That's not how this works. Don't worry. Now, what is the whole package? How do you really get an idea of who the character is starting off, and then develop that from there? Well, the first thing I want to know is not so much background of the character, but why. And what do I mean by why? Why are they doing what they're doing? Like, you're going to play a game where you go off to a dungeon and go through a dungeon? Well, why would your character do that? Why would they take up a dangerous job? Right? Why would they do anything that they're doing? I want to know. I want to know either through just directly talking to you, or I want you to write it down, but I want some idea that I can make note of as a game master as to why you're doing what you're doing. I think that's important. Now, here's something that happens, right? When you're answering questions, for your character. Think about like someone learning to cook, right? Well, when they do that first dish and they're learning techniques, those techniques will be, good for all these other dishes. So in a way, by learning one dish, you're really learning more than one dish, or at least the techniques to complete all these other dishes. Well, when you're doing interaction, when you're answering questions in the game or even out of the game, say during character creation, when you're answering questions, giving information for your character, that information is like those techniques. It's going to tell you all these other things. Like if he or she is okay with this, well, then they're likely going to be okay with this, and the other thing. So, from just answering a few questions, just giving a bit of information, you're already learning a lot about your character. Now, when you get into a gaming session, what you really want to do, especially in that first session, and that second session, and third session, you really want to focus on getting into as much interaction and dialogue as you can. So you can answer more questions, because the faster you answer those questions, the faster you develop the character. I've seen players take like years to develop a character. Like that's a method they have, where I would tell them they can achieve a lot of that in like 3 or 4 sessions, not 2 years. Honestly, as a game master, knowing why your character would do something, it gives me a lot of room to make up things that are going to be more relatable to the characters and what they might actually go after, right? Like again, it's like that information is telling me a lot about your character. Like why they would do something. Well, if they would do it for this reason, they'll probably do this other thing for this other reason. And they probably wouldn't do this thing over here. Like it doesn't mean that I'm going to use that information to build the entire game, but at the same time I can get an idea of what I already have and how that might relate to what the character would do. And yeah, I might make some adjustments, obviously. Right? Like, that's going to happen. That's important, information. And as a game master, my number one rule is until I apply it in game, it's not set in stone. And those changes would only be there to benefit you and your character and your experience. So I wouldn't do anything to favor myself, or I don't look at the game as me versus you in that way. I understand that I am controlling opposition against you. And we can try to look at it as me versus you, but I think that's a useless way to look at it, because realistically, if it's me versus you, well, your character's dead. Well, I just said it. I'm the game master. That's my word is authority. I win. That's it. It's over. I win. So there's no real competition there. So I always come at it as a game master, and I think any game master should, as, look, you are controlling opposition, but you're controlling more than that. You're controlling the neutral zone. In a way, you should be have an unemotional, attachment to things. So you don't look at, say, controlling the opposition as you fighting the player characters. And I don't care, how you're going about playing the game. You could be a story gamer or someone who wants to, mostly play the board game. You can still do dialogue. Even if you're just playing mostly a board game, you can still do interaction. You can still develop the character just like the story player could. They can go in and do the same thing I'm saying here. So this technique should be able to work for anyone in any style, all the different ways you can approach these games. Interaction, this type of stuff, character development will be optional in every setting, right from the board game to the story game. As a player, if you have avoided this area, you owe yourself just a one-time run trying it this way. I'm sincere. Give it an honest go. Don't look for it to break down. Give it a go where you jump into interaction in the way that I said, that you don't got to do unique voices. Plainly speak, don't worry, you don't have to be an actor. But get into that dialogue. Like, get into it, do the interaction, and just see if that character development is something that appeals to you. Because it might in a way that you don't expect it to, but you have to give it a chance. Right? It's like anything else you like in your life. The things you like, you're not picking apart. The things you don't care for, you'll pick apart. Well, if I can get you to try this and you end up liking it, I know you'll reverse your opinion on this type of thing, especially if you're someone who doesn't care for doing dialogue and interaction. Anyway, for now, take care. You know what you can do? You can hit the like button. You can share the video. Oh, and there's another button you can press. That one that lets you subscribe to my channel for more content. Oh yeah, there's that bell thing. You can press that so you know when I've uploaded a new video right away.